I remember I was at an event in London many years ago, and Steve Ballmer was there, and he was speaking, and I had a chance to ask a question about some old device they had at the time, and whether it was going to be released in the UK, because there wasn't really any kind of sign of that. And I just straightforward asked him, and he basically just said no. I was like, I didn't expect him to answer. I thought he'd probably just have this kind of CEO roundabout answer. He just said no. And I was like, oh. And that was the first time they'd actually admitted to this at that time. This was for their Zune device, which was like a music player. And I was like, oh, but just his whole vibe is totally different to Satya, who's the current CEO. So it's kind of like the friendly neighborhood Microsoft these days. But it's interesting that it's not like an anti-Microsoft thing at all. It's just you went to that particular platform, and it suits you quite well,
just,
you know?
Yeah, just to try it. I mean, more or less around the same time, weirdly, I was originally on the old iPhone 3G, and then I actually got given at a Google event, one of the early Android phones.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it now. And I used that for years. I was actually on Android for years. I was on some of the old Samsung Galaxy phones, and then randomly around, I guess maybe around the time of the Apple VI, I said, oh well, we'll switch back just to see what the hype's all about, and just see if it is actually any better, sort of thing. And then it's fine. But if tomorrow again, I speaking of Steve Ballmer, I'm told that now he's obviously left Microsoft.
Yeah.
And he's now owns the LA Clippers.
Yeah.
And I'm told that any Clippers employee is not allowed to use an iPhone. So that's how deep.
So he's still well into that.
He still blames, rightfully so, because as you know, he famously made fun of the iPhone as a ridiculous sort of child's or a toy, but priced at $600 or whatever it was at the time, and that it would never catch on.
Yes,
it more or less ended his career as they struggle to ever make Windows Phone.
Yes, exactly.
Relevant, So. Yeah, it's been an interesting time, but there's nothing about it. I mean, the other thing I would add about, Apple is this device and going back to the original era of Apple. There's a well-known Silicon Valley venture capitalist, Roger McNamee, who was one of the earliest investors in Facebook.
Yeah,
also made a ton of money off that investment, not surprisingly, but then very famously turned publicly against Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, and was attacking their practices, or around privacy and other things that people had concerned. Actually, wrote a book called Zucked.
Wow.
About it, and about his issues with how they were conducting themselves. And what he talks about was about how Steve Jobs and Apple and that whole generation of industrialists, I guess you might call them, had embedded in their DNA about this, what he called, this hippie version of Silicon Valley. This idea that computers and technology could be bicycles for the mind, and they could uplift people and society and companies and so forth in a very positive way. And conveniently, I guess to some extent, timed with, with his passing, that a very different and, you might argue, darker or maybe more mercenary philosophies, what he called the Peter Thiel version of Silicon Valley, began to take hold. Which was much more libertarian, much more, say, friendly to the readings of an Ayn Rand. This idea that actually, to some extent, we're all in it for ourselves, and we should be shameless about the fact that we're in it to make ourselves as wealthy as possible, as powerful as possible, and yes, at the cost of others is part of the game. We should not be shamed of saying, yes, some will suffer as we accumulate that power, but that's their own fault. If they were any smarter, they would have known better than to fall prey to whatever business model or piece of technology that we deploy.